forms? Excellent. All right. So, of course, we have to do a little bit about us. Let's start out, and I'm going to let Becky tell you who she is. Hey, Becky.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Becky. Rob and I both live in the St. Louis area, so we're sort of up the street if you're in KC. I have been an MVP since, I don't know, what is the first year? 2008. So it's been a minute. I'm a Microsoft certified trader, and I do own a consulting company called Savvy Technical Solutions in the area. I love taking exams. Occasionally I write them for Microsoft. They help me keep my skills sharp. So my running total now is 30 Microsoft exams passed. So that's sort of, although I think maybe I've done 3 since then because I had to up my partnership. So anyhow, there's something to be said for, I think they're fun. They remind me of sort of, you know, a train leaves Boston in New York. Exercise is a part of my brain I don't normally get to use. Anyhow, I also am married with 3 kids that are 7, 9, and 11. So very busy.
I quizzed her on that this morning, so that's how she remembers how old they are.
I was like, how old are they? Exactly. I forget. They're enough to just make me, yeah, I'm at that stage where I have to run around and do a million activities all the time. Chauffeur at this age.
All right. Well, I'm Rob Schmidt. I am assistant engineer at Washington University in St. Louis, and got an aerospace engineering degree, but switched over to IT because I was at the end of the Reagan era, and there really wasn't much going on in aerospace engineering. So, been working with SharePoint for a long time, and the last 5 or 6 years been working a lot with SharePoint Online Teams, all the collaboration stuff. I'm not going to tell you my kids' ages because I don't remember them, but I'm waiting for grandkids. I'm sure my wife would. She knows their birthdays. I forget some of that stuff. All right. So here we go. Let's start talking. We've got a lot of things that we want to show you. And so I'm just going to give a really short look at this, is that we wanted to put a presentation together that helps you as a consultant and advisor, or even for your own self, but you had some requests for collecting information, right? And we all have tons of different ways we can collect it, you know, Google Forms, different form software. But within the Microsoft realm, you have a lot of choices, and there's a few putting this together that I didn't know, and so it was good. So you'll see the first couple will be around Forms, the Forms app. Then we'll play around with SharePoint for a little while, doing some things, and work our way into full-grown Power Apps. And with the idea that you only do what you need to do, right? So if you can do a form and it does what you need to do, you can stop right there. All right, so we're going to start out there. Any questions before we get started? All right.
Feel free to come off mute if you want to ask a question, because we may not be able to see it.
Yeah, and Becky, if you wouldn't monitor chat while I'm presenting, and vice versa. Okay, all right, so here we go. Let's start out with Forms. Okay, so Forms is just one of the options within Microsoft 365. And I'm going to show you how to create a form with Forms, but holding it within a group. And that's for 2 reasons. One is ownership of the form, and 2, where the responses go. Then I'll show you, and this is a scenario where if you're collecting information and you have a group of people that need to manage the submissions, and so there's a process that needs to go with that, not necessarily a workflow, but generally you want to manage it beyond the spreadsheet of submissions. We'll look at taking that form, and when it's submitted, putting it into the SharePoint list that you can manage. And it's great because you get some different column types, you can assign things to people, but there is a complexity of that flow going to it. So anyway, here we go. Let's start out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a form. And come on, get me back to where I was. Oh, that's the other one. Here we go. All right, so I'm in Microsoft 365, just office.com. Come up here, look at Forms. All right, here we go. And so the scenario that Becky and I will go through is You want to be able to let students enroll and you want to collect the information. And so you're looking for a way that you can send out a link to people, put it in an email, put it on a web page, and collect it and have the submission. So I'm going to start a new form. And before I even start it, I'm going to look, because I can create a form that's within the 365 Ether, or I can start it from a Microsoft 365 group. And the reason I highly recommend this is so that ownership is managed by the users and you'll see the responses instead of it being in the Ether, it's within a team. So that's why I recommend do it. And that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so here we go. We got the form will pop up. And I'm going to try to keep it really simple. I'm going to call this our student enrollment. And here's the kind of cool thing that just has popped out fairly recently is all these recommended fields. So artificial intelligence is asking me if I want any of these things. I'm going to go ahead and take student's full name, email address. I'm going to add these to it. Bada bing, bada boom, I've got them. If I want to click on this, I can make both of these required. And I'm not spending much time in forms because it's really easy to play with and get to know. This kind of almost gets in the way a little bit, the AI stuff, but oh, here we go, email address required. And I'm going to add one more column. I'm going to add that as a choice column. And now I have, this will be my third question. I will make it required, and it's going to be the class. And I'm going to have two options. Let me pull from my copy here. And because it's real simple, I'm going to have one right here and then go back to my list, copy another one. Okay, so I think that's what I need. Let me do a preview of it. Student's full name, email address, and class. Yep, that's what I want. All right, so I think I've got what I need now. I'm going to go, I'm going to look for collecting responses. So I'm going to get here. I'm going to let anyone respond. Okay, so this is a really key point. Power Apps, SharePoint, it's all about your tenant, right? But what if you want outside people to submit anonymously? This is your easy way in. You can do it with Power Pages, but you're talking about licenses and challenges right here. Anyone can respond. I'll shorten the URL. Now I can embed it in somewhere and get a QR code, but I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go out here and I'm going to fill out one. Boom. All right, here I am. My name is Rob Schmidt. And my email address is blah, blah, blah at, see if it's going to let me do total blah, 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 blah at gmail.com. And I'm even going to do 2 ats instead of that. Oh, yeah, okay. Thinking about should we, and I haven't done any dissimile for years, so I'm going to go to the dummies class. All right, so I got something submitted. All right, let's go take a peek at it. So that group, let me go back to my home and I'm going to go to forms to SharePoint. And I see that SharePoint out there. Come on, come back to me. We'll go recents. And I'm in the sites. And I'm going to go to, I'm not seeing, we must have been playing around with this a little bit. I'm not seeing documents, so I'm going to go documents. And hey, here we go. So I have just gone from creating the form to, and remember, we put it in forms group, which has a site created, a SharePoint site created. And here's my email address and all my information. So, wow, that's pretty quick, right? And you can get all those together. But so we want to be able to manage this now. And because this person put in an email address that wasn't correct. So I think that what we need to do is we need to put this to a SharePoint list. Okay, so all right, let's see if we can do that. Here we go. I'm going to go back to my form now. And any questions so far?
I'm going to put a bug in your ear, though, that when you get to the right part of the presentation,
Yep.
I'd also be interested in seeing whether this data could be stored to either Azure or to Cosmos DB.
Interesting, very interesting. And
I
I
have some
think,
use cases for you.
okay, yeah, I think the answer will be yes. And when we get there, I'll show you. So I'm going to go back now. I had to think. Okay, so if I want to save stuff in SharePoint, I need to create that repository. All right, so let me go back to this SharePoint site, and I'm going to create a list, and I'm going to go make sure I'm in the home. I'm going to go home, new, and I need to get back to the home page so I can do this really easy list. I'm going to create a blank list and students sign up simple, and I'll show it in navigation. And I really only need a few fields. I need the name, and that's a simple text field, the student name. I gotta take a break, guys. I'll be back in a minute. Just kidding. Student name. And as a ex-programmer, I always try to not put spaces and stuff, go back and add them later, but you'll thank me if you end up doing any work later with the student name, and I'll throw email out there. And then the last thing, of course, is going to be the class, right? Save. All right. So as a class, if I'm starting to manage this within SharePoint afterwards, I probably want this to be a choice field so we don't end up with a whole bunch of stuff. So I get the choices. This is a class, and I need to think of this choice field. So I'm going to go back to my classes, and I'm going to take out some of this extra stuff because I can manage that elsewhere. And a key thing with moving stuff from a form to a SharePoint list is the options that are in the forms. They have to have the exact same thing in SharePoint. So I'm going to simplify a little bit, and I can put other stuff within the form to give them more information. So let's go back to here, go back to that, and I'm going to pick this up. And again, I'm just picking stuff up so I don't have to type it in. And I'm going to go back to my form. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to my SharePoint list and two options, boom. I do want this required. I don't want them to add manually. And I think that's good. I'll just save it as is. Here we go. We got a choice field. All right. So we've got a SharePoint list to send it to. We're going to go back to our form and change that so it's got a simpler choice. So let me go back. I'm looking. I do have forms up. Here we go. I'm going to go back to it. I'm in the form options, and I'm going to edit this. I'm going to simplify. Oops. Okay, got my good simple ones, and I'm good. All right, so now I need to tie the two things together, right? Got a simple form, got a SharePoint list. So flow is the way I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go back. I'm now back at office.com, and I'm going to bring up Power Automate. And there's lots of templates. I use them just to see kind of what I want to do, but I often end up just creating them from scratch when I'm really ready to do what I'm thinking about, right? And there's these three types. There's a schedule, which I don't want. I don't want it to run every so often. As soon as I submit one, I want it to go into the SharePoint list. There's an instant Cloudflow where you kick it off. That's not me. Here I am. And I want this to be based off of student sign up, simple. Okay, and I want this to be based off of when a new response is submitted in forms. And this shows up at the top because I've done this in practice a few times. If not, I would do new response, something like that, and it'll get pretty close, right? All right, so that's going to be my trigger for my flow. That's a trigger for it to kick off. And I have to give it the form. Now, here's the hard part. When you create a form within a group, it doesn't, the Power Automate doesn't see it. And if you forget this, if you Google it, it'll pop right up. It's in the top space of Google. So I need to go back to my form because I need to give it a value. That's my SharePoint site. Here's my form. And if I copy this form and I'm going to paste it into my notepad, you can see that at some point there's the ampersand. So, it starts out as, forms.office.com, and it has a lot of ampersands, right? These are add-ons to a URL. And I'm going to start where it says ID equals, and it's always at the end that I've seen. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it by itself. Okay, got it. All right, so now I'm going to come back to my flow. Again, I know we're showing you these things fast, but you can Google and see a lot of this stuff. I'm going to enter a custom value. I'm going to paste it. Okay, don't not quite know if it's gotten it, and you'll see here in a little bit. The first thing I'm going to do is try to get the details of that, and you'll see that's a common theme. If you have a trigger, it doesn't instantly give you all the details. So I'm going to go forms, so I can click on it and I can see all the different things. And the only thing left with forms that I can do is get responsive details, which is what I want to do. Again, form ID, I click on it. It doesn't see it because it's a group form. I'm going to put my paste in there, and the response ID from up here, I have that one. Excellent. Now here's where the big test comes in, is if I had that form ID right, you'll see in my dynamic data. So what's the next thing I want to do? I have the details, so I need to create an item, right? So SharePoint is the connector. And again, I'm blowing through a lot of stuff, guys. And so if you're not familiar with this, you will want to go back, but hopefully this will give you the steps and you can go back and kind of figure out the details. So I'm going to use the SharePoint connector, and I want to create not a file, but an item. Okay, I'm going to create an item in a list. And now I'm going to go find my, I will find my site. It should find it. There we go. Forms. And the list within it is a student sign up simple. Now, the key here is when I click on title, oh, hey, look, my stuff came up from my form. So this is the dynamic data from the previous steps. This is the first step. And this is the second step where I was getting response details. Okay, so I am going to, I don't think title is usually required. So I'm just going to put responders email in there. But in student name, I'm going to add the student's full name, email, and class. So here's a little bit tricky one, is I want to, here are the options, but I want that option of what they chose to come from my dynamic data from the form submission. So I told it custom value, and I'm going to do class. Okay, let's save this bad boy and let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to save it. I'm going to test it as we always should when we create a flow. I'm going to do my flow checker. Doesn't see any obvious errors. I'm going to test. I'm going to make it a manual test so that I can go back to my form. All right, here's my form. And if you've played with these, you can actually submit from preview, which is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to make Becky my student here. And Bertram, if I can spell, at savvytech.com. And I'm going to pick underwater basket weaving. She was really good at that in college. Here we go. All right, I'm going to go back to my flow. It's up here. Oh, yeah, here we go. And you know what? I don't think I must have not done that. But here's the thing is it saved it. I actually should have a run of this. Let's go see if we have a run of it. Your flow is ready to go. Got it. And I already had one that succeeded. Oh, hey, I'm not even going to go look at that if it succeeded. I'm going to go look at my site. And here we go. Becky Bertram under this. And I've got something weird happening here. Email. And I don't know exactly what it is, but I can go, and I'm not gonna do any troubleshooting other than to show you that I can go back and look at my flow and I can see the pieces of it, right? And where I would say that 90% of the problem when you create a form and you try to put it to SharePoint, it's going to be choice columns that are going to give you trouble where you have a space in one. And so your choice column in your SharePoint list will not be chosen. It'll be blank. And it's because they have to be exactly the same down to the letter. Okay, so I'm going to look at what I ran, and I've got, wow, that's weird. So I've got something weird going around. See, aha, email address. And I use responders email, which is really because I was logged into Microsoft 365. So kind of out of the scope, but just gives you an idea of the information you get, right? Okay, so just chose some other columns. I could go change this. I'm not going to take the time to do that, but I could, right? And now I have, think about this, I got a form that's submitting to SharePoint. So now I can take this SharePoint form, this SharePoint list, and I could add other columns to it that won't be filled by the form, like a status, right? Choice, next, status. And you could have processed and submitted. So, or rejected. Maybe you want to actually manage this if people are really not really ready for the class. So you could have this be a field that you add, and you can manage this within the SharePoint list after it's submitted. All right, so you got this done, and somebody says, this is SharePoint. All the people are really, it's going to be a small group. We can just have them join our team. We can invite them. They can request, and we'll just have them fill it out within the team, within the SharePoint site. So, so we go back to our site, and I'm gonna assume that we came up with student signups and classes. All right, so we came up with some more information around the classes that we want to share with them, and then as well as manage for us. And by the way, any questions on that? Oh, Tamara, you had a question. I went by it. I apologize. Where you would do what you were talking about. Let me go back to this. I'm going to edit this particular one. And instead of picking a SharePoint connector, you would pick, and I'm just going to do it here because you could put it in multiple places. And I think the Cosmos database, here we go. That might be a premium connector. I have to look and see. It doesn't seem like it's telling me anything yet. Yep, see how it's premium? So,
Okay.
so yes, you can do it, right? And you get all of these different actions that you can do. Get, execute, delete, create, store procedure, create or update document. Boom, there you go. And so you have to deal with the authentication type and stuff. But generally you can get, I'm surprised actually that it's not doing that in my connection part of it, because when you are working with the flow, you also have, connections within it. And I would think it'd be there, but each of them are just a little bit different, because really what it's implementing underneath the hood of flow is it's implementing a REST API. And so Microsoft publishes it and says, if you want to play in Power Automate, here's how you play, right? And this is how Microsoft or for the Cosmos database, and if you're doing MySQL or whatever, this is how they've implemented it.
Okay, that
So,
helps.
Yep. So it gets you closer. I've not played with Cosmos database. So what was the other data source that you had said?
We are looking at eventually migrating off Cosmos and going straight to Azure Data Services. So
Okay. So if you're doing Azure Data Services like for file services and stuff like that, then you could take a document and push it into there. It's just another connector. You put the metadata and put documents. I've done that with documents coming in, like email coming in with an attachment, and you put it to a document library. So you can do those, and it really is just about your connector and where you're putting it.
okay.
All right. Anybody else?
Our migration plan started with a SharePoint list that has become an unmanageable nightmare, and our second, the AOL 2.0 version is Cosmos, and then the eventual solution is Azure. So
Okay. And will it be Azure SQL or Azure File Services? Or you're not sure yet?
it's
Because Azure, you can
probably
implement any
going.
database.
It's probably going to, well, let me preface this by saying it's going to work with a core Dynamics 365. So
Ah, okay.
everything is going to be, compatible with in whatever way we need it to be to get
Yep.
plugged into Dynamics 365.
So one other
How's
thing
that?
to think about, yeah, no, that's good, is Dataverse, right? Think about
That's
Dataverse as an option. That's what you're
and
thinking about?
that's what I was thinking. I was Dataverse
Yep.
and I said it wrong. So thank you very much for the
Yeah.
clarification.
And so that is another one. Again, it's so Becky's going to show a little bit about that, and you'll be wowed by how easy it is to create something that works for basic needs. Now, what you'll find with any of this stuff, and it's just like any platform, is that to do the basic thing is, the happy path is easy. It's when somebody has additional requirements that create some thinking, right? And she'll show you that. All right. So we've said we can do everything in SharePoint. We're just gonna see if we can use the SharePoint form, right? So we're gonna go to our student signups, the non-simple one, and you'll see it's pretty simple still. And I'm gonna do new, and oh, it's pretty simple. I just put in the student. Now, what will be interesting is look at this. Oh, actually, let me do this because I'm in a different environment. So we made this as a people column in SharePoint. Oh, how nice. So now I have all that information about Rob. I have their email address and stuff like that. I'll pick this. Okay, save. But people want, the classes list has a lot of content around it. And the people that are managing classes, they want to be able to see who signed up for it, or at least they just want to see some better data. So we're getting into something that I didn't know exists. So the first part I did in a classic SharePoint world, if you wanted to manage the order of fields, you would do that in the list settings, right? Well, you don't have to do that now. You can go to new, let me get rid of settings, and I can change the order of the columns of edit. Remember, different than a view. I can do that here. Okay, so again, just to show you where I got to, because I talk pretty fast, is I did new, like I was doing a new one, and I'm going to come up here and I have multiple options. The first one I'm going to pick is edit columns. And so there may be things that I don't want to show on the form that people fill out, and I want a system to add it. So I can just take it off of the form completely, right? And let some flow fill that in, but I'm not going to. But I do want to make sure that when people are managing this class, that they're looking at how many people are in it and what the drop deadline is. In fact, I want that to be the second thing. Boom. All right. So now if somebody comes in here and they say, I'm going to do a new class, drop deadline's really important. It pops up right away for somebody who's managing a class. So I moved around, but then we've got some person that really they need more information, right? And so I'm gonna try to make this a little bit prettier, and I'm gonna do new, and I'm gonna see if I can get a header up here. And so this is another option. I've seen it, I've seen demos of it, but I've not played with it much. All right, header. So I went out and Googled. FYI, I went out and Googled just formatting. I think I did SharePoint formatting, and I got this page. It's on top. And this talks about how to form header, body, and footer. And literally, I used just the content out of this this particular page. And I did copy it to Notepad just to make it simpler, or to a Word document. But you can scroll through this, and I do have this in the presentation as well. Let me go back to my site here. Let me get rid of forms because we're not doing anything with that anymore. And I'm going to manage this and make it look a little bit different. So here I am. I'm going to copy some JSON, and it's scarily long. It looks scary. You'll see in a second. I always try to copy things in a notepad, get rid of any formatting, and you see how long it is, but it's really not that much because literally I copied it, and the only thing I changed, and this is the key stuff of this, is you just look for it, is student sign up. It said task detail right here, text content. All right. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to paste it in here. And I'm going to preview it. Oh, it doesn't like it. Let me make sure I have that full line there. All right, it doesn't like it. Let's go back to it. Key thing is to make sure, like any scripting you do, cancel out of this, cancel.
I feel like you're paying Rob. I've done this many times and it's always like one extra bracket or something that gets copied in there.
Yeah. Preview.
You have to count them all sometimes.
Yeah. And oh, you know what? I think I copied the other one. So let me copy the right one.
Is it because you're copying the body into the header?
Yeah, that's why it wasn't what I did before. So I tried to make this as dummy proof as I could, but I obviously didn't. And so let me try again. So I'm actually going to copy the content for the header and put it in the header. All right. You can only make it so dummy proof, and then it's just an ID10T problem, and that's what it is. Let's see if it likes it. Hey, student sign up. So now I'm going to go ahead and save this. And so now when somebody does new, they get student sign up in real big bold. Let's say, though, that there were a bunch of columns here, and often these things grow, right? If you want to collect information and manage it, next thing you know, you've gone from 5 to 30 columns. Happens to everybody, right? So I want to modify the body and put them in sections. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna throw some sections in there, and then I'll mess with some of the other fields and maybe header names and stuff later. So let me just get started. So first thing I did was I did configure layout. I'm gonna tell it I want the body, and this time I'm gonna copy the body JSON, and again, hold it directly from that article, and I'll show you the only pieces that I changed. So the only thing that I changed was I put in the header name, and I put in my column names that are my column names over here. Okay, all right. So let's see how it does. Preview doesn't ever seem to work for this one, so I just go for it and I save it and I come back and look, and oh great, I got my headers and I got my fields in them. Here was a aha moment for me. I was just like amazed. So let's say I want to change a column order around. Edit columns, and look at that. It's got my section header names in there. I just thought that was cool as heck, right? So it's retaining that, and I can say I want everybody to know that the drop deadline is the most important thing that people are looking at. Okay, save. Boom. Now I've got, let me try it again. Edit columns, drop deadline, save. Oh, you know what? I have seen sometimes, FYI, I've seen sometimes where I have to refresh. Doesn't happen all the time. And there it is. So, wow, now we can modify that. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you, and I'm trying to go as fast. Any questions? Okay, the last thing I'm going to show you is this is your entry point into SharePoint, into Power Apps. So let's say that the people that are managing the classes are insistent that they see the students that are signed up for that particular class. Okay, all right, we can do that. All right, so we're going to go, and I could have done it via edit. You saw there were 3 options there, but I'm going to go here, Power Apps, Customize Forms. And you see there's multiple options, but think this is Customize Forms. And let me go back. I'll come back to my slide deck and tell you the positive and negatives of this. But I might have, actually, I have a little time while this does its little magic. Let me come back while we're waiting for that to finish. Okay, so we've done the columns, and you can see the JSON. I got a couple of resources here. They're very similar to each other. And customizing SharePoint forms, you have more options, right, within Power Apps. It gets you that I'm getting into Power Apps, and you'll see Becky will actually create these from Power Apps first, connecting to the SharePoint list. But the key thing is, and Becky's has tried this for a customer, is if you want to take this list and make it in another site, you got to start all over with this Power App. You can't migrate it. So this is a one and done type thing. All right. And I will show you how you can delete the farm to start over. All right. So it brought me into Power Apps now. It says, oh, go back to SharePoint, and notice this. And this is the key, that this is SharePoint integration option. That's a component here, and that's what links us back and forth between them. And you won't see this Power App if you went into Power Apps to start with. All right, this is very specific for replacing that SharePoint farm. Show you a couple things with this, and I'm going to make it super simple. I want to change this because I'm assuming most people do this on a screen, a larger screen, and it's right now set up to be a smaller format in portrait. So I'm going to go to the app. I'm actually going to go to the settings. Think about this as object oriented. I'm going to go to display. I'm going to change this to landscape. It's telling me, hey, it's going to move stuff around. Okay, yeah, I know. Okay. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to 2 column. So within that screen is the form part, and I'm going to change that form to 2 columns. Again, it's all what you're clicking over here. You may have a hard time finding it when you're doing this. I did when I was first doing it. It's all in where you're clicking as far as what shows up here. So now I've made it 2 columns. Excellent. All right. And I don't want a field. I want to take out a field. There's something that they don't need to have in there. I don't need attachments. Oh, actually, I do need that. But for people looking at this, the specialization, this can be something that's managed somewhere else, or we'll automatically fill it in. So I'm going to remove that from this form. Okay, so wow, it just removed it from the actual form. So this is the SharePoint form. All right, I got that in there. I've got it. It's nicely formatted, and I'm going to add another data source. Now, here's something interesting: is I'm going to add my student sign up so I can see what people are signing up for. I'm going to come over here and click. I'm going to add data connectors, and I need a SharePoint connector. Okay, and I'm going to enter the SharePoint URL. Enter the SharePoint URL for the location of your list. I'm going to choose this one, and student signups. Okay, connect. All right, so now I can actually put the students that are signed up. I'm going to insert a gallery, and I'll do a vertical gallery. Now I need to make sure, I'm going to go back to my list here, and I now see I have a form in this screen and a gallery. I'm going to move this down just because I don't want that to be the most important thing. The most important thing is the class, right? And so just as an FYI, what I typically do when I'm doing these is I click on where I want this to fit, and then I insert it, and you'll see where I do that again later. I'm going to do vertical gallery. All right, and I got it down here. Again, I'm trying to get student signups, right? Okay, so I've got this gallery. I added it. Let's look at the data source, and I'm going to make it my student signups. And I'm just going to make it title. That's all I want is title, and I'll add some other columns. And if I look at the columns here, I got, the title, which we didn't use in the class, but or in the signups, but I know that we were doing, let's look for student name. Student, now student is a people column, so I got all this information about them, right? So I'm going to do display name. Look at that. 2, we got Becky and Rob. Awesome, fantastic. I want this to be smaller, so I'm going to mess with the first one. You'll see how the following columns all come off of the same thing there. And I can go and add a header later, but I'm not going to do that right now. Just to get the basic thing, the last thing I want to show you is I click on the control and I insert another text label, and you'll see where it actually will go inside. It didn't go in it. So this is a good thing to show you. That's not the label I want. It popped up here. So I need to delete that little bad boy. I'm just going to kill it. Boom, you're gone. Let me make sure that I am in the gallery. I'm in the gallery. I have it selected. I'm going to insert a text label. And it still didn't do it. So I think what my problem is I need to be in the first one. All right, so I'm going to be in the first one. I'm going to insert text label. Aha! Now here's what's really cool is, so this is wired up to student signups, right? So I can come back to my edit, and I'm going to select the control, see how I see different stuff, edit. Oh, wait a second, look at that, ID, see the number. I'm going to get the email address of the person. So student and email. Boom. All right, so the last thing you'd want to do is you'd want to have the class, and that's probably what I should have done for time's sake, but I'll do this. Again, select the first one, insert another text label, because all I want to do is see stuff, right? And it shows the name. So I come back here, I'm going to click the control, I'm going to click on edit, and I got to figure out which one it is. And what I knew it was the most recent label added, so I'm going to do class. And class is also a lookup, so it's a little odd, right? So class, and I'm going to pick the value of the class. Boom. All right, so the only thing I would need to do to wire this up so that I only had the classes for underwater basket weaving is I would go to items for this control and see where it says student signups. I'm going to do filter this, and I got to give it the filter class.value is equal to whatever this field is. What is that field? This field is, oops, that's that dead one that I don't want. This one right here. It is the data card value 1. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this. See, it's got an error right now. Data card value 1. Notice the IntelliSense happening here is equal to, oh, that's what I want to make it equal to. It's equal to data card value 1 and close. Let's see if it likes it. It still doesn't like it. Let's see if it's easy. Class.value is equal to data card value 1 dot. I got to give it more information. Text. Boom. Look at that. Now I only have underwater basket weaving. All right, so I'm going to save this. I've got what I want. I'm going to save it. Let's get out of here. I'm going to save it. I'm going to publish it. I got to publish it to SharePoint so that it can see it. And give it just a little second. I'll go back to SharePoint. I am going to leave. And we should have a voila moment. Voila. And I do underwater basket weaving. And Becky, this was too much for 1 hour.
Okay.
No, you did.
Is there an implied "I told you so" somewhere in
No,
there?
not at all. Not at all. Not at all. We were just discussing it, whether it's not. All right, excellent. So obviously there's cleanup that I could do to it, but you can see now that I have all the students that have signed up for this class. Becky's taking her own class. So questions? All right. So let's go back to what we're going to do. Let's see, Becky, I will delete this as you start yours. Okay, I'll delete. You can go back and delete it. I got a form and error how you can go back. It's very easy to go back to your old SharePoint farm. There's a link in here. It's super simple. Let me get back to my first slide so you can see where Becky's going to take over. So Becky's going to show you as much as she can of starting one from scratch. And the model-driven app, which you already have do you have the tables already created for that, Becky?
Yeah, just you can hand it over and I'll take it from here.
All right, I'll shut up. I'm going to hand it over and give it to Becky.
All right, sounds
Go
good.
ahead,
Thank
take
you,
over,
Rob.
Becky.
Thank you, Rob. All right. So let's all right, I'm going to start sharing here. So to remove a Power App, if you remember before, if you ever had worked with InfoPath in the past, so in order to create your customized form, you go to that Power Automate Customized Form menu, like Rob showed you. But then to remove a Power App, you're actually going to go to the list settings, and then you're going to see Modify Form in Power Apps. You can also see Use a Customized Form created in Power Apps. So it actually gives you default Power Apps InfoPath. And the InfoPath obviously is just for legacy purposes there. I just realized I don't think I turned my camera on, did I? Let me turn my camera on. There we go. All right. All right, so you can see that it's very easy to switch back and forth from that SharePoint form, from the Power App to the SharePoint form. So you may be building the Power App, but you're not ready for it to go live. If you switch back to the SharePoint form, it's not necessarily going to remove the Power App. It'll still be associated with the list. It just won't be used. So you can't always go in there and then indeed delete the Power App. So let me
And I
go
added the
back.
link to how to do that to the chat. Yep.
Okay, cool. So if we go into the so student signups, and if I go to the list settings, and then if you go to form settings, you can see here, modify the form in Power Apps. That'll actually open Power Apps for you. If you see versions and usage, etc., it's taking you back to basically the details page for that, right? And then of course, delete custom form will remove it. So right now, if I go to use a default SharePoint form, it would still mean that so that's what we're still seeing, the default form, because that's what's used for it, even though there can be an app associated with it. So it's pretty easy if you ever want to undo that. All right. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is when we move along our scenario here, there are times where you want to create a standalone Power App that's connected to a SharePoint list. And there's a couple reasons for this. Sometimes you just want a straight up form. Thank you for submitting your entry. We have received your request. And these are times where people don't need to see a list of everything they've submitted. They don't even need to know where it got submitted to. They just really need to see a form. As Rob's talked about, the Microsoft Forms is very quick and dirty, very easy to spin up. Power Apps, you have total control over user interface. You can connect multiple data sources. There's a number of reasons why you may want to use a Power App versus a form. The second kind of standalone Power App is what we would typically call like a three-screen form. And the idea is usually that people can see a list of items as well as that new or edit form or that display form. So in this case, it's not just submit the info, thank you for your submission, but in that case, you're actually seeing a list of details. And we'll get into that a little bit. When you're building standalone Power Apps, there's a number of things that you need to consider. Number one, as Rob already alluded to, I spent hours and hours trying to move a SharePoint Power App, a Power App that was associated with SharePoint list, and it was virtually impossible. I could not achieve it. I actually had to crack open the manifest file, was dealing with GUIDs all over the place, URLs. I mean, the location of that data source is all over it. So if you create a standalone Power App, the great thing is you just export your Power App, re-import it, and then you just create a new data connection. And provided you've also maybe copied your list over to a different location, or even just create it with the same column names or whatever, you can very easily just map it to the new data. So this is a much better approach if you want to be able to export, import, reuse, that kind of thing. The next thing to keep in mind is that Power Apps can return a max of 2,000 items in a single query. So when we look at SharePoint, if you notice a SharePoint list, as it uses asynchronous page loading. So as you go through and load more and more items, it loads a batch at a time as you scroll through the items. And that's how it prevents you from getting, too much in a single query. Power Apps uses HTTP to make a request. So if you get more than 2,000 items, it just, you're going to time out from making a request that big. Also, from a usability standpoint, nobody wants to go through 2,000 items. So if I'm having an approach where I am actually going to show people, like Rob showed you that gallery control where I have like a list of items, I try and inherently build in something that will limit it. So I'm not just doing a select all, from that list. So oftentimes I'll do things where I'll say, just show me my items. And I might say, all right, if you're administering this list, like Rob showed you, maybe on the back end, we're using SharePoint, and then in the form, we're bringing up individual results, etc. But the idea is we probably don't want to be returning more than 2,000 items. If you do, it is possible to batch them, to go through and batch them, but even that takes some hijinks to do. So just keep in mind that limit. I believe they're working on a way to get around this. I think I saw that written a long time ago, although I don't know if that's been released to do this sort of asynchronous processing on the back end. The next thing to keep in mind is if you're doing a processing like this, SharePoint, a Power App with items, SharePoint natively allows you to do sorting, filtering, searching. In a Power App, none of that is built in. So you have to actually build in all your queries to say, if this, then that, grab this, then that, if they're sorting, filter by this and sort and group. So the idea is you actually are having to manually build all these queries that work with all your drop-down menus, etc. It's possible to do it. It takes a lot of work. So again, if we have really exotic queries, and I know that people can be trained on the back end, I usually let administrators that need more exotic queries just look at SharePoint. But the end users, again, if I just want to see what my submissions are, and I just want a quick and dirty live with looking at it, this is a very easy way of doing it. Another helpful thing about standalone apps is you can sort of glue multiple data sources together. So for example, I created a Power App where it will return planner tasks associated that got created when a SharePoint list item was created, or another one where we have client files. So people can have one list of the clients, and then when you go to that list, you can see the associated folders from a different list. So kind of like Rob was showing you before where we had the classes, but it was pulling data from the signups. This is a good example where a Power App will let you sort of aggregate data from multiple sources. It is possible to embed in a SharePoint page or a tab in Teams if they're a standalone app. And this is not even talking about Teams for a Power Platform for Teams or Power Apps for Teams. If you go to Teams and you add a tab, you can actually get sort of your own Power Apps. And then if you're embedding as a web part, in either case, you basically grab the URL of the app and use it. It's like an iframe. So it's pretty straightforward. So even if you're not using the Teams environment, that's no reason why you can't just create a Power App and put it as a tab in the team. You just need to make sure from a security standpoint that you've shared it with everybody who happens to be in that team. If you're using again, here the key is if you're creating it outside the context of Teams, it's not going, you can't just auto share it with the Microsoft 365 group. And that is because Microsoft has this setting where M365 groups, which are what Teams groups are not natively security enabled. So you have to run a PowerShell script to be able to share with that screen. So you can, but it's not natively possible. So that's just something to think about. If you're using the Power Platform for Teams, it actually gives you access to the Dataverse, which we'll show in a minute. But the downside of that is there is a quota for your team. It's a good size, but basically they're giving you sort of a try before you buy, or that what do they call it? Freemium model, where you get a little bit for free, but if you exceed that, now they're going to start charging you, and you're going to have to sort of promote that environment to be a full-fledged environment. So the Teams environment is good if you're just doing a couple things, but if you have a really exotic approach you want to take, you're probably going to outgrow it in good time. Okay, the next thing is if you're creating a Power App, you want to think about, is it going to be used for mobile? So a lot of people are just used to using forms on their computer, and that's typically how we think of it. But the power of having mobile Power Apps is really helpful once you think about things like having the camera on it. So for instance, I had a client where they had people that gave presentations, and these people would go out and collect paper cards. You know, the people would sign up. I want to sign up for the mailing list or whatever. And people would actually write them down. Well, these people in the field could literally take a picture of the cards, submit it, and then throw them away. I had another client that we did the same thing for expense receipts. They could take a picture of the expense receipt, submit it, etc. So being able to do things using that camera is really cool. The other thing just to keep in mind is if you are having them submit the data just as a form, so the user just sees the form. They don't really know where the data is stored. Sometimes you can say, well, I'm going to hide the data. If they don't know where it's at, it's like it's secure, right? You just have to keep in mind that SharePoint does you have a very, and Teams, Office 365 in general, has a very robust search engine. So even though you may say, well, nobody's never going to browse to, nobody knows where the list lives, they're never going to browse there, they could still accidentally uncover those submissions if they did a search query. So you need to make sure that even if you're sort of hiding where the data is being submitted to, you still want to make sure that you have a Power Automate flow on the back end or whatever to lock down the security of that item. So if we have a demo of creating a standalone Power App, you can either go to the integrate. So say I have my classes, and in this scenario, we want to be able to have a new form that's just a straightforward, hi, I want to create a new class. So this is a one form example. I could either click here and say create an app, but if I did that, it's still going to use that mobile vertical aspect ratio that I don't like a lot. So in fact, I'm actually going to go and I'm going to go to Power Apps, and from here, I'm going to create a new blank Canvas app, and you can see I can pick that aspect ratio class creation. So this is where professors can go and say, I want to create a new class. And it's going to be a simple one-page form. So I'm going to go in, even though it's kind of pointing you to use the Dataverse, you can actually sort of ignore that and say, I actually am connecting to SharePoint. I'm going to connect to my classes list. And now I'm going to insert an edit form. And I'm going to tie it to my classes list, and voila, it's going to auto build the form. Kind of like Rob was showing you before, we don't have time to go too much into how to build a Power App, but the idea here is I can build this sort of one-page form, you know, and I can have text. It's like, you know, class submission form. All right, so we have a class submission form. In terms of, kind of like Rob did, I've got my special little code here. It is possible to make a person field default. So I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to add information that says grab the information from the currently logged in user. So whoever's filling it out, at least it'll be sort of, it'll default to them. You can also adjust all these sort of input, you know, the billers. So I'm going to say, please enter a drop dead deadline, a drop class, not drop dead, a drop deadline. Okay, so you can do that. Again, I'm not going to go through too much of this, but if we're at the top here and we want to be able to enter, have someone save it, we're going to have our save button. And then we're going to actually have a new screen, which is just going to be a simple thank you screen. So in here, we're just going to have a text that says, thank you for submitting your class. All right. And we'll have something like that. And then we'll have another text, which will be like a return link. Submit another class. All right, so what's going to happen with this one is we're going to make it look like a link. And then I'm going to say that when we select this, we're actually going to navigate back to that first screen. So we're just going to say navigate to screen 1. And then on the screen 1, when we save it, it's sort of a two-step process with forms. The first thing you're going to do is in the save button, you're going to submit the form. Once the form has been submitted, you actually go to the form object itself and you actually have on success and on failure event. So what we're going to say is the save button is actually going to save it to SharePoint. If the save to SharePoint is successful, then we're going to navigate to our thank you screen. So I'm going to go ahead and say, the last thing I need to do is I need to set the form to new. By default, it's going to be that edit field, that edit version. So it's looking for what am I editing? So we're going to make it new. So where I'm going to say new class, we're going to enter a drop dead deadline. It have a start and end date. Description. And the specialization. And I could attach a file if I wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and save, and it went ahead and submitted. So that's an example of just a one-page a Power App. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save it, save and publish it. All right, so it should be saving. All right, and I'm going to go back now. So now I have this new class creation app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the details of the app and I'm just going to, it literally gives you this nice little, copy to clipboard icon. So when I go back to our site here, if I wanted to add that form, I can just go to SharePoint and it says, what's the link or the ID? So I go ahead and put it in there and voila, it should show up. We'll see if it does. Come on. It's thinking about it. Well, did I get too fast? I might be moving too fast.
While you're waiting on that, I know we're at the top of the hour. If anybody wants to stick around and kind of watch the end of this, obviously it's riveting, so you need to keep up with it and make sure you know what happens. But if you do need to go for a meeting or something, feel free to pop off, and we do record this, so you can always come back and watch it later.
Thank you,
Sharon,
Sharon.
and are you also making these publicly available? Because I'd like the rest of my team to see this one too.
Yeah, in fact, if anybody goes to just go to it's kcm365.org. If you go to our website and you go to past events, that should take you to the link, and it's in our YouTube channel. So the KCM365 user group has a YouTube channel, and we post all these out there.
Okay. I'm really interested in using that QR form. Yeah. My brain is exploding right now.
No, it's amazing. Jonathan made me one, and
Yeah.
I actually have it all of my presentations. It's on my speaker screen so that people can just grab the QR code, and that way they can just fill out a form right there.
Yep. And you can print them out, throw them around. If you're printed out, throw it around the area. If your physical area where people are working, if you need them to be able to have something quickly to know how do I submit a problem?
All right, so here's an example of embedding that form on a page. So again, if you have an intranet site and you just want a basic form, or if I had my Teams environment and I actually wanted to go in and let's see, where do I have the right window open it? Here it is. I could just go to the top of my team. I could say add a Power App, and in fact, it's going to show me, which apps are there. So I could go in here and I could actually just say, there's your form, and it could be a tab. Just as simple as that. So the next kind of demo I wanted to show is just that we have a sort of that 3-screen app I wanted to show you an example of. So I have pre-built this. This is sort of Martha Stewart or Julia Child pulling it out of the oven here. So this is an example of sort of a list view, and you click on the item and it views the details. So say I'm going in and these are all the new classes. So you can see the one that I just created here, but I want to enroll myself in, the nuclear warhead disassembly. You can see it's grayed out because I'm actually now in the signups, and whichever one I click on, it actually gives me information. So I can choose to enroll in it. I can see details about the class by clicking on it, and then I can enroll. When in fact that enrollment, what it's doing is it is actually picking up the details from the class itself. I have too many windows open here. Bug. Too much going on. Okay, here we go. So if I go to the student signups, you're going to see that I just added this one right here. So again, that's an example of where that 3-page form I've limited. Instead of showing every single user, I'm actually just using it to show the currently logged in user. So if Rob logged in and he viewed it, he would actually see a separate set of items. And in fact, I'm saving to 2 different data sources. I'm grabbing from the classes list, but I'm also grabbing from the student sign up list as well. So if I go to my signups, it's actually showing me everything that I have signed up for, as well as the class information. So this one is grabbing from classes. And then this one is viewing pulling from signups. So that's just an example of how you can, again, it's nice for Power Apps to be able to combine those. Creating apps, we already talked a little bit about team environments. Each team has its own Power Platform environment. You have to set it up. It's not there by default, but the first time you use it, it'll create it, but it'll take a couple minutes to spin it up. Like you said, usage is capped. Apps are auto-shared with the M365 group behind the team, which means if you delete the team, there goes your environment as well, obviously. So when you're creating a Power App in Teams, you don't have to use a Dataverse. You could still connect to a SharePoint list that's in your environment if you wanted to. You could also use a Dataverse table. And then finally, when you publish it, typically when you publish a Power App, you would say who I'm sharing it with. But in this case, you're actually going to publish it to a channel, and it's going to make it as active as a tab in that channel. So I already showed you how to add the Power App to a SharePoint site in a team, but let me show you about how you can create a model-driven app. So if I go to my team, and I say I'm going to go to Power Apps, and I'm going to create an app in Power Apps, you can see that it spins it up for me.
And Tamara, I recommend you looking at this as an option first, because it's actually creating all the forms, everything around it. It's kind of like doing an Apple Access, Microsoft Access form associated with a table. And there is licensing associated with that, with doing a model-driven app against Dataverse tables, but it may be worth it to you.
Okay. We have a fairly significant app built out already, and it's underpinned by the Cosmos DB because timing is the nutshell version. Timing, we are pulling information in from an application that we're about to retire, but not all of, and there will be a period of time where we have to use data from the retiring app and data from Dynamics 365 and consolidate them together into the same Power App to be used by the users.
Gotcha.
Eventually, when the other thing is retired and we are 100% on Dynamics 365, the intention is to get onto Dataverse. And we got lots of experts in-house now to do that. Yes, but still.
Yeah.
Like I said, we had our pandemic protocol that was the just get it done, sort of make it, ugly is better than not. And yes, so now we're recovering from that and moving on to the next evolution and then the next. And this is really turning into a great application for us to use for lots of different kinds of use cases.
Nice.
Good. So here before when I said add data, I used the SharePoint connector, but in this case, I'm actually going to create a new table. So in this case, I'm going to create my classes table. actually, I should have, I did that wrong. I should have created class. It allows you to do singular and plural. So if I'm going to edit it, I shouldn't make it plural. Doesn't like that. Anyhow, my bad. Okay. So that would be the name of the class. So if I want to add a column, I can go in here. So if I said, you know, like kind of like we had before, I can have a start date, end date, required, etc. So I'm going to create a start date. Oh, now it's letting me edit the table. Go figure. All right. So again, what's nice about the Dataverse tables is it lets you do singular and plural. All right. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add an end date column. Make that required. Now there are some nuances here. So for instance, if I'm doing that specialty, like I did before, if you're doing something like a choice field, you actually have to create almost like an enumeration. So you have to create a new, so instead of the display name being the single option, you would actually say specializations. So my specialization could be business analytics. It could be information technology, or, you know, it could be InfoSec. So I could go in here and create these, and now you can have nice little color coding if you want, which is kind of nice. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. So I created basically my choice options, and now I'm saying use those choice options in my table. You could actually also, if you notice here, then my specializations shows up almost like a different table. So when you're creating choice options, they're almost like quasi table there, and etc. So so I'm going to sync it with my specializations, and now I can see what my default values are there. So there's a little bit of nuance there. So I'm going to go ahead and I have created my table. One thing to note is if you don't have like a people field, like for instructor, so you actually have to go create a new table in the Dataverse that is of type contact, and then use that. So you don't have the native access to Active Directory, and it's because Dataverse can be tied to public-facing websites, etc. So it's not quite so tightly bound to Azure AD like we're used to. So I'm going to go ahead, and I've now created my data structure as a team, as a table. And now if I want to connect my app with data, if I click on classes and spin it up, it's going to build a similar kind of app for me like we saw before. It's going to natively build it for me. All right, so I can create a new record, so I can add a new class. So this would be new class, got a start date, end date, etc. Clearly I need to do some cleanup on the order of these fields. Oh, that's because the start is doing a time and everything like that. So when I go ahead and do it, you can see that it's almost like what we had before in the Power App. The difference is though, so I have some, I can delete this, but if you notice here, I don't have really a lot of control ability to insert a whole lot of extra things. It's not quite as easy to manipulate as a Canvas app. Stuff is sort of baked in there a little bit more. So I think they have made some stuff a little bit easier, but if I go in here and I look at my form itself, so I have data cards, they actually have made it a little bit easier to edit than it used to be. It used to be pretty rigid in terms of those model-driven apps. At least this, they've made it so you are connecting. It's still like a Canvas app, but it's connected to that data source. So, all right. So let me go ahead and save and publish. All right, now, so I'm going to go ahead and publish it. Now, do you see here, I'm actually publishing it to the general channel. I'm not positive that that was a model-driven app. That wasn't really a model-driven app. That was a Canvas app using a Dataverse table, which is sort of a hybrid of the two. Okay. Now if I go to my class creation, it should have published it. Did it do that all the way? It is not showing it. I think I was clicking through too fast. Let's go back to Power Apps. I'm trying to move fast because I know we're late. So I am sorry. We're going to try this again. I think
You're
I'm
fine.
clicking,
My bad.
clicking through too fast. No, it's okay. Here it is. We're going to try that one more time.
That's one thing you have to be patient when you're working within Power Apps and Power Automate. Security takes a while to get pushed out to everywhere, and because there's a lot of behind the scenes things happening.
That is the truth. You are right. At the channel. I still don't see it. Because that was the one I had added previously. Okay, well, at any rate, that would be, so if I go in here and I want to add a Power App, I could see it from my apps. If I go to model-driven apps, let's see if it shows up here.
And it may show up in 5 minutes. I've had create tabs and then not show up for other users. Not usually, but every once in a while, it'll take a couple hours before it shows up for them.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better. Then I think that's probably what's happening. So
Yeah, I bet you it is.
all right, well, I think that was it for the demos. And again, that wasn't really a model-driven, that was a misnomer to say it's a model-driven app. It was a Canvas app that was tied to a Dataverse table. But the idea there is you are using the Dataverse, so you are using the Dataverse for Teams and that. So.
And the biggest thing with the model-driven apps is all that connective tissue is all created, but Becky's warned me that if you want to veer off of what it does for you, it's more complex than a Canvas and set of forms, right,
Yeah.
Becky?
Yeah, it is. And that's the thing that it typically is pretty, it's very prefab, but you have to use its tools because you're really, they're sort of auto-generated forms. So you have to really massage the data source. You have to make sure your model-driven data is correct in the Dataverse, and then the forms sort of come through. But it's definitely a data-first approach, not a user interface-first approach, I would say. So you can do it, but it's sort of coming at it from a DBA standpoint more than a designer standpoint.
Yep. A lot of the business logic goes into the tables before you even create the form.
Yeah, which is that's sort of a mind job for me as I'm so used to 3-tiered development that you have, data, logic, and user interface, and it's almost like the Dataverse sort of has all of them at once, kind of. Because the forms are actually tied to the table. So like the views and the list are actually stored with the table itself. And then the business logic is like at the field level and things like that. So that's a whole different story for a different day. But thank you guys for joining.
Thank you.
I hope it's been helpful for you guys. And, there's definitely a spectrum of starting, as Rob pointed out, with the Microsoft Forms, customizing a SharePoint list, using JSON, being able to have Power Apps just to make the default form a little bit more exotic, but still in the context of SharePoint, up to having standalone one-page forms that are saving it in SharePoint but not surfacing the SharePoint data per se, and then finally having those the SharePoint data with that gallery view, all the way up to creating that within that Teams environment. So hopefully, as you're doing your solutions, you can decide sort of which element works for you. I know it's a whole lot of information, but as Rob and I were talking, there's just so many options. It's sometimes hard to know which to do when to do which. And so we thought at least hopeful to be able to see sort of what the options are. So I hope this has been helpful today.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for spending your time to go over that. I think that was excellent. I got a lot of value out of watching it. I mean, I do this a lot, and I still, every time, like, I learn something new, and I get to see how other people do it. So it's super cool. Make sure drop your contact info in the chat if you want. I'm gonna pop my LinkedIn in there if anybody wants to connect that hasn't already. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Becky or Rob, or just ping me. I can always hunt them down and find them for you. Thank you everybody for coming, and we'll see you guys next month.
All right.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.